my expectations were so high. You know that my expectations were high. Get hopeful when a book starts out with I actually highlight it because when I don't have any hope in something, I don't bother marking it. So I'm gonna get rid of it. And I stopped marking after like the first couple chapters. Nope, nope. This is gonna go. This is gonna go right into the. Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I am an author, editor, reader, and today is book review day of Clive Barker's The Scarlet Gospels. I got into this book because I haven't read a whole lot of Clive Barker, but I do enjoy horror and I do enjoy supernatural stuff. And I enjoyed The Hellbound Heart, which I talked briefly about, I think like a year or two ago. I really enjoyed The Hellbound Heart. It was such a nice little, like a little novella. It was very pleasant, like kind of dark, obviously. And so I was very excited to pick up another Clive Barker book. Unfortunately, this was not the next book that I should have picked up, and we'll get into why. But before we get started, I want to invite you to join the Patty Wagon. Right now, join other Patties by clicking the link in the description down below and see the current writing contest, which is just a writing prompt. 750 words or less. You can make it 300. You can make it 50. If you could tell a great story in one sentence, holy crap. It's very hard work to do. But if you can do it, just click the link, write your story, and submit it. And in October, I will read the submissions in a video, and we're going to have a good time. With that said, let's get into a book. I know it's a physical book. I love my physical books. Even when I don't like the book, let's just look at this cover. It is a beautiful cover. I like The Shining, which just makes it all the more sad that it's not a great book. So what is this book about? Honestly, I kind of got lost in what the actual point of the book was because it changed after the intro and the first couple of chapters. Generally, it's like, I think the best way to describe it is Pinhead goes on a journey quest to get all of like this magical power to then go and take over hell. But I don't think he started out with the intention of taking over hell. I think he thought out with the intention of impressing Lucifer, but then when he discovered Lucifer was dead, then he wanted to take over hell. Because I didn't really see a point in him trying, like, I didn't see him trying to go after Lucifer up until Lucifer was introduced as dead. Anyway, Pinhead tries to get a bunch of magical powers in the world to take over hell, and then fights Lucifer at the end. And then there's a detective, Harry D'Amour, who is kind of sucked into all of this because Pinhead wants Harry to be the witness to his quest, and Harry is like, no. And then Harry's friend is abducted, and Harry goes on a journey to save his friend and witnesses the demise of Pinhead in the end, anyway. So, that's it. That's pretty much the short of it. Now, if you go into this book expecting Clive Barker's typical horror feels, you're going to be very disappointed because this is not so much a horror as it is a supernatural thriller. I think it started out with the intention of a horror, or at least the feeling of thriller, when you've got the prologue with Pinhead and a bunch of gruesome stuff going on. But then, probably like a quarter of the way through, it just completely shifts perspective. It completely shifts voice and style in a way that almost to me feels like it was written by a different person. This book was written over the course of what I think was like 15 years. I think it started in 2003 is what I read. So maybe not quite 15 years. And then it came out in 2015, and he went through a lot of stuff during that time, so I understand that, but same time, after about the first quarter of the book, it feels like it's written by a different person entirely and doesn't read at all to have the same authorial voice, have the same authorial style even as The Hellbound Heart, which was obviously written well before this was. So to get started, my first note on this was at least he's creative and wastes no time at getting freaky, But that was also in the beginning where I was still like, okay, we're gonna have a good time here. But the dialogue was so bad in general throughout it. It was unnatural. It read forced. There was lots of exposition in dialogue. There was lots of explaining plot holes through the dialogue. So characters would ask another character a question just in order to explain um, something away, and it didn't really help explain it away. It just goes, okay, so you know that this is lazy writing or just not good writing. And there was a lot of dialogue that was not fit. Like the characters were completely undeveloped. And more often than not, the dialogue was used to make punchy one-liners or to try to make a funny joke, and it sacrificed the individual characters or individual character voices. I honestly there's a main cast of like 5 people. You've got Harry, Norma, Kaz, Dale, and Lana, and they all sound the same because they're just trading one-liner punchy lines for the most part, or setting each other up in order to make a punchy line, and often it's over talking as well. And so then when you're in really tense moments, or you're in what should be emotional moments, they're not emotional, they're not tense, and anybody could be replaced with anybody else because they're just making punchy one-liners that aren't even funny. That's probably the biggest crime. If you're gonna make one-liners and set stuff up to be funny, at least be funny. Oh my gosh! I also cannot say just how many times the phrase "stopped in his tracks" was used in this book, which also just made this read like a novice's first time writing a long book. If it was used once, "stopped in his tracks," okay, whatever. I'd still kind of ding it for being a cliched phrase, but it was used multiple times, and by somebody like Clive Barker, you're either phoning it home or this is somebody else writing it. There was regularly shifting points of view in the middle of a chapter. Sometimes it would be vague and be like an unknown or somebody that doesn't know how to know something, and then try to shift into a close POV. And so that was really disruptive, and that was usually just for the sake of being able to describe people in like a more questionable way, or more like you didn't want to be in the bad guy's head to describe this other guy's how he looks, because you wanted to show how grotesque it was. So you'd be in this other person's point of view, but then once they're done describing it, then you'd slip back into the bad guy's point of view, and it didn't really work. I wanted to roll my eyes every time Dale talked because he was always horny and winking, and he was just like the stereotype of some horny little gay. Oh, and man, it was to the point that like you get into the last couple of pages, like the last 20 pages, and so you've got Kaz, who was described as like a 7 foot tall queen, and he was apparently very loose, and so he's talking to Harry, and Harry's like asking him about his sexual relations recently, and Kaz is like, "Oh, I've Dale has made an honest man out of me." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that," and then Cass says something along the lines of, "It helps that he's hung like a giraffe," and it's such unnatural dialogue that it's not. You want to roll your eyes. I don't know. Maybe other people wouldn't, but I did. Oh, I did laugh at. So they're in hell. The main group of humans are in hell, and there's one demon judging other demons as being inbred and disgusting. But that doesn't really work with demons, because demons' whole thing is that, they're immoral. So now you've got an immoral creature cursing at another immoral creature for not being the same kind of immoral. Like, it's holding demons to a human standard. And it really didn't make sense to me, but I'm also very specific in how I like demons written, or how I like to read demons. And this was just it didn't make a lot of sense. I don't feel like the demon ideas and the demon society in this situation was really thought out and really determined, like the leveling of anything. It was just kind of there. And then there were parts where I couldn't buy the dialogue or the relationship, because you've got some of the humans, like Harry's best lady friend, Norma, was asking the demons who captured her questions that would then just fill in the exposition for stuff that we didn't know. But I didn't understand why the demons would tell their captive all of this background information on hell, on themselves, on other types of demons, and it just read off as a ploy, like a writing ploy, in order to tell the readers all of the stuff that really didn't matter anyway. When you've got a confidant style character, readers can usually tell, and viewers too. We talked about this in theater when I was taking theater classes. that readers and viewers can tell when somebody is a confidant character, and there are such giveaways like, well, as you know, or I told you this before, and then you start getting into background stuff or exposition. And so when you have a character that says, "Oh, I know that as I told you before," or "as you already know," or "we said this last week," it kind of it implies and expresses that these characters have already had this conversation. So then when you do it again, then you're just doing it for the sake of the reader and not for the characters. And there are times when you've got a captive who is taken away, but kidnapped by demons, asking, "Well, where are we going? What is this place? Why does that smell? What is that thing over there?" And she's a captive. She's powerless. I think at this point Norma's bones were broken or something because she got beat like Pinhead beat the crap out of her and she was being carried. So why is he answering any questions? Why is this demon answering any questions about any of this? She's a captive. It doesn't make any sense. So she just became kind of a confidant in order to tell the reader things that didn't affect the story anyway. It just became page content. So Lucifer comes in. He's not mentioned at all until maybe like three-fourths of the way through the book when they go to Lucifer's tower. And that's when you're suddenly like, oh, so they're going to go see Lucifer. But up until that point, Lucifer had not been mentioned at all. And when Harry and Pinhead find Lucifer, he's in a chair that he created that killed him because he was so miserable in hell that he didn't want to live anymore and he wanted to outsmart the Almighty Maker. And so he did that by committing suicide with this suicide chair. But it doesn't work because eventually he comes back to life and then there's a showdown with Pinhead and, there's some back and forth of death and until eventually Lucifer wins and Pinhead is the loser. But then, after beating Pinhead, Lucifer decides that, okay, he doesn't want to be in hell anymore, and so now he's going to break the sky off of hell, and then he's going to leave hell because that's what he feels like doing. So, we're in current era, right? And Lucifer has been in that death chair for who knows how long. But suddenly, now at the end of the story, with no growth, with no exposition, with no explanation, now all of a sudden Lucifer knows how to escape hell, and he can overpower or outsmart the Almighty Maker by breaking through the sky of hell and getting to Earth. It really doesn't make any sense why now, of all times, thousands of years in the future, at least, at least tens of thousands of years since he was damned to hell, that he's finally been like, okay, well, I've been miserable, so now I can break out. Why didn't he do that sooner? It really didn't make any sense, and it came out of nowhere, and it didn't feel like it was planned. It felt really lazy. Also, there's this whole thing where Pinhead is going around killing all of these demons and like absorbing their power, but they're also already in hell. So like where do demons go when you kill them in hell? Because then there's also like I would get it if they kind of died and then they came back because there is no escaping hell. But there were all of these other creatures that he just completely massacred that were totally dead. But then he couldn't die. And so I didn't understand what the rules in this situation were, and I don't know if Clive Barker did either, because it mostly just feels like Clive Barker didn't like this story, didn't care about the story, and kind of just put it out because he was kind of forced to put it out by his fans, who wanted more Pinhead. As far as I read, is a lot of people assume that, Clive Barker said he doesn't like what happened to Pinhead, and so putting this out just kind of became a piss on the industry, piss on the characters because he hates the story and he hates where it went, and so he didn't want to put any effort into it. I'm just don't put out the story then, man. Respect your readers enough to not produce a book that you don't care about. Oh my gosh, there's it. So they get back, Harry and the crew get back to Earth, and Harry's best friend is dead, and she gave him all of her money and all of her assets, and because she was loaded apparently, and so like the whole ending of the book had an after-school special feel to it. There was a part when Harry was talking to the dead woman because she's a ghost now, and she's like, "Oh, Harry, the world is sick. Everyone is sick. We need to do better," was basically her thing. There was also some random reverend, like, here we go with crazy Reddit atheist that comes out of nowhere. So we're doing fine. It's whatever. And then Harry and them get out of hell, and they're on some random highway in Arizona, and there are all these cars passing, and it's just like everybody's ignoring them. But then the author feels the need to specifically say, oh, now there's gospel music, and there's a cross on the front of that car. Oh, Christians are no help ever anyways. And then shortly after that, a reverend in a limo pulls up, and it's just long enough for for Dale and Kaz to hold hands inside of the limo after being asked if they would like a ride. And of course, Dale and Kaz are men, and so of course they just casually hold hands in front of the Reverend, and the Reverend goes from being loving and being like, "I'll help save you," to "Y'all are gonna be damned," because Harry is like, "We just came out of hell, and there is no hell anymore." And so then the Reverend is just swearing the swearing to heck, which obviously always has to happen with my edgy atheists, because all Christians are amazing hypocrites, is the feeling vibe that I got from this. And so then the guy is just swearing, and his employees turn on him when the main cast and crew kick them out of their car. They all push this fat guy onto the ground, including the fat guy Reverend's employees, who also don't like him, but we're just putting up with him for whatever reason. And Lucifer gets out of hell and catches a ride from some chick named Alice, because he was also on the highway. And they fall in love and they bang, and then they get to New York, and then he tries pizza, and he's like, "I like this. I like this." And that's pretty much the end of Lucifer. Like, he comes in the last 3/4 of the book. He has a couple of chapters in his own perspective that just don't make sense. And there's that. Also, I don't know. This is just, see, I love stories that use Lucifer. I'm very interested in stories that use Lucifer and angels and devils. I'm very interested in that aesthetic and those tropes. But then I'm also very specific in what I hate him being used with. So then you've got these angels after the fall of hell, after hell's been destroyed and Lucifer is still beat up and in hell before he's escaped. And then you've got apparently these angels that are hanging around looking at the destruction like they're tourists. And they're just swearing every which way, and they're calling God a fuckwit. And you're just like, you're angels. You're being called angels, that you're here, just visiting, and you're just swearing to heck at everything and everyone, and it doesn't make any sense. There's no difference between the angels and the demons then, except apparently the demons are better, because at least the demons that were through the passages of hell were not swearing all the time and being disrespectful and mean to everybody. But then the angels, the first time they show up and the only time they show up, they are. So I mean, that just tells me more about the mindset of the author than the characters, because they like to twist things. The last couple of pages of the book are an epilogue that felt completely unnecessary. It was all just about tightly, nicely closing everything up. It was a happily ever after ending. People got married. Here's all of this money. This is the closing. These people aren't actually gone. And some of them were just stuff like Lucifer going to eat pizza for the first time, where like nothing happens. There was no point in it. And honestly, I think the epilogue could have been cut entirely. But there's a lot could have benefited from being either cut or very changed. But it really doesn't matter if the author thinks that the book is not worth his time, or he's just not interested in it. Anyways, Clive Barker's The Scarlet Gospels. I give it a not recommended. Especially if you like Clive Barker. This isn't really, I would say, not really the same style. If you want to read a good Clive Barker, I'm going to recommend The Hellbound Heart. It was really good, very short novella. And I'm probably going to read some of his older stuff, maybe when I come back around to it. But I'm not going to be in any rush to read more Clive Barker at the moment, because this was disappointing. And if he just put it out because he wanted to piss on like the fans of his work, but he was tired of the story, I don't really like authors with a bad attitude. So, but Hellbound Heart is a good story. And this is going to go in my donation pile if it doesn't go somewhere else. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you're a fan of Clive Barker, if you've read The Scarlet Gospels, if you've read any of his other stories, I would love to hear from you. With that said, if you enjoy this kind of content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Give me your book suggestions. I kind of obviously read mildly obscure things, kind of weird things. I've got some books lined up, but I would still like suggestions on what to find. Marquis de Sade is going to be coming down the line soon. I have some of his collections. And thanks to the person who recommended Ernestine. I just ordered that. It is on its way. By the time this video goes up, I might actually have it already. So, with that said, thank you for being here, everybody. And until next time, hope you have a good day, a good week, and please don't die. Happy 2020. Right. Dear Madam Astra, that's me. We regret to inform you that on August 1st, your employer, Agatha Jane Benedict, owner of the Benedict estate, peacefully passed away in her sleep. Oh, that's so sad. Wait. Let me try that again. Oh my goodness. That's so sad. Yeah, I think I'm ready. With millions of dollars on the line and the opportunity for your every need to be taken care of for life, tell me, is there anything more valuable than that? I didn't think so. Dead End Drive is a dark comedy novel that makes 3 promises. 1, an illustrious estate in Louisiana. 2, an opulent dinner affair for all in attendance. And 3, and most importantly of all, lots and lots of competitive murder. So if you're looking for a cozy book to settle in with for the spooky season, I've only got one question for you. Will I see you at the will reading?